Well, hello everybody. How's it going? Oh, hi, Mog. Woof. So today we're gonna keep working on this proxy art challenge business. If you haven't been here for the first two episodes, you can find links in the description. Basically, we're taking on Unity's proxy art challenge, which is you create 3 different Unity scenes by yourself, and they're based on memories. What up, Lee Codes and Thomas Collins? So, first up, why don't we go ahead and get a reminder of what the hell we were doing before? Yes, that's right. We had a can full of durians just hopping right out of there. They're colliding with the ground. They're shrinking away so they don't just pop out of existence. We got our famous dancing can. It's alright here. What up, Josh Glass? So what I want to work on today is just kind of pushing forward with this scene. So I think we're going to work on a table. We'll probably work on a skybox. And we'll also start setting up some effects. Okie dokie. Let's get to it. So, what do I want to do? How do I want to start this? I want to start this by going ahead and making a table for our can to sit on. So we're going to jump into Zamaya. And we need to start by referencing in one of the models we've already made. So we're making things to the right scale, of course. So let's go ahead and reference in that can. Boop. Here we go. And, yeah, here's a can. As you remember, or as you might remember, the lighting and the clipping's all jacked. And we made a button for that, so let's go ahead and hit no clip. Fix that. Get the right textures going on. Alright, that's a little bit better. Get out of here, Gamma. We don't want you. Yeah, so we got a can, unanimated version, in our rigging pose, so we can move this around, get it into position. Now, we're not going to export this can from a new position or anything. We already got it doing what we want. What we're going to do is just kind of give it a, a visual offset so we kind of know what we're dealing with. Let's go ahead and start making our table. We will start with, yeah, we'll start with a cylinder. We're not going to make a square table. Square table's boring. That's what I'm saying. We're going with a round table. Let's see. How big do we want our table? We want stuff bouncing off of it, so we need it big enough to do that. But we don't want it too big, So let's go with something around here. Yeah, that's probably pretty okay in size. Now, it's a pretty big table, so you got lots of facets here that you want to get rid of. We want this to look somewhat, round. True round. So you just add more edges. Still a little, little faceted. Let's go up a little bit more. You know what? We got the space. We can do this. Here we go. That's nice and round looking. I'm going to add a cap division. A cap division will add a new edge loop on the cap. And what this will help us do is, like, if we want to add any, surface level details to this table here, it's going to be a lot easier if we have this division set up beforehand. And yeah, that's pretty good. Now, I think what I want to do is I know I want a roundish table. So let's go ahead and search the interwebs for some sort of reference. I'll tear this little panel out here so we can go ahead and search. We want a round table. Let's get literal. Ooh, look at all this beautiful reference. I don't think we want to get too carried away. We don't want to make it too ornate right now. I think we're going to be looking at the table mostly from a up top perspective. So, you know, a center leg like this, like while you would still see it, you're getting, you know, you're going to lose a lot of detail on that. What we might want to go with is something with a few more, you know, legs around. Something more like this, I guess. This could be pretty interesting. Yeah. What else we got? What else we got? The center leg tables definitely get more ornate. That's for sure. That's a pretty cool table. Oops. Let's see. Oh man, look at this crazy business. Get some line legs going on down there. Oh man, what do I want? I don't know. This one's a little wacky. This is kind of wacky too. Let's go more simple. Let's go with something like this. Yeah. Except, oh, there we go. Good resolution. So we'll ignore definitely these directly under the table things for now. While people will, you know, eventually be able to come into the scene and rotate it around from any angle, we're going to work on the ideal angle to start with. So mostly we're just going to see the center bit coming down and the legs coming off. And we're going to start with something that looks pretty close to this, but that's only like, you know, a starting point. We can always come in here and add a lot more detail if we want to. So let's add another cylinder to be the main body, main post coming down here. And this one we definitely won't need as many, you know, facets because the circumference is going to be a lot smaller. So you're not going to notice it as much. Let's go button here. Let's look at our table. What's that look like again? Now they're using sort of a, what is that? That 8-sided octagonal, using some sort of octagonal shape. We could do that. We could do something like that. Like so, and then we'll add some. I think we'll start with a torus to get those other shapes. Yeah. This is going to be a little wacky. A little bit wacky, but bear with me here. I think you'll understand why I'm going this direction. -80. So, how you guys doing out there? What up, XOXOXO? How's everybody's day going? What are you guys all up to? Why you got like nothing to do? Trim this down. Alright, so what we want to take out of this little piece here, this primitive, is just this, you know, section of it that's going to end up being one piece of the legs. And you might be asking, it's like, well, why do you got this excess hanging off of there? And that's because if we just delete what we want, we're going to leave these fat, empty spaces, right? And you can come in here and extrude edges and do other ways about it, but it's just easier just to leave yourself some extra material here, and then grab your vertices and then just collapse it all together. We're gonna work with our custom menu set. So I did set up a custom menu set in my off time. And I set up a few hotkeys for myself. I haven't been working on these scenes at all. You know, just been working on other stuff. That took me out of loop for a few days, so it's been a few days, but I'm back. Mesh, edit mesh. We want to merge. And then this merge gives us a handy-dandy little window, little tiny window here that we can use to set up the thresholds of like how far each of these have to be from each other before they merge. And then you can just jack that up because it's, you know, it's a live input happening in real time. Do the same for the other side. Let's go ahead and look in the inside here so we can see what we're doing. Mesh. Merge. Boom. Then we're going to just go ahead and line that with the other vertices, other edges. I'm holding V. This will snap to vertex. So I'm snapping in Z and yaw. Getting that, you know, this little guy in the same position as these two guys. Doing the same for the other side. Just get, you know, flat face. Come back to it. And that way, you know, you got your faces going on. Let's go ahead and modify the shape a little bit because these legs are thin. And they kind of sit on the edge here. Don't have to be perfect. Something like meow. And they're a little bit smoother. But I think I want... yeah, I'm gonna go with this because it'll look a bit more wooden for now. Well, maybe one more edge loop in between all these. Let's do it that way. So we're going to come into our modeling tools, multi-cut, and then we're going to snap in the center of each of these cuts by holding shift. Gives us a percentage. I could use my, you know, typical tool that I love using, edge loop tool, but I want these to be exact centered. There we go. And then we'll just grab all these guys. And then we want them to kind of, you know, scale, right? So that they get more of a round shape going on here. But we don't want to scale them from this point. We can change what point we're scaling them from by using insert and moving this little guy here. There we go. So now that when we scale these out, oops, we'll be moving from here, which is exactly what we want. So now you can see that, you know, you get that rainbow shape going on. And then once you come out of here, you'll be good to go. There we go. That's kind of a leg, I guess. You might call it that, if you were generous. Come on, guys, be generous. Clicking noises are oddly satisfying. Yeah, this is my foray into the, what do you call it? The weird spine tingles videos. ASMR. Blasting some shatter right now. I don't know what that means. Hey, Arbitrary Alex, what's going on? Lasering around, I can understand that. We do need a few of these, so let's go ahead and freeze it, delete history. And then we're going to rotate a few out of here. Let's see, what does our example have? It has 4 legs, so we'll go with 4 legs as well. We're just going on a circle here, so each one of these will be 90. Or a -90, were it the case. Sweet. And then as you can see in our reference here, these are coming out of a flat edge, not a corner like is happening on ours. So we're going to go ahead and fix that right now by rotating this around. By, what is that? What is the math on that? 25 units? 25? Yeah, that looks about right. And then you can also see that on our reference that the corners in between the legs look a little bit, you know, this face looks a little bit tighter than the face with the leg on it. So we'll go ahead and we're going to duplicate that look right now. Let's get our can out of the way. And we're going to do that by scaling. So we want to scale not like this. Definitely not like this. We want to scale in world space. There we go. And we'll just eyeball it. We'll just eyeball it. You could come in here and, you know, constrain your scale so that it's going the exact, you know, amount you want or whatever. But eyeballing it's going to be fine. For these purposes, you just need your eyeballs. There you go. That's giving you something close to what's going on. And our reference also looks like it has the same sort of legs on the underside of the top, so why not? Right? We can do that. We can rotate those all around. 180 degrees. Flip them upside down. Drag them up to the top. Get them roughly in the right position. Cool. So we got something of a table happening here. Looks like these legs are a little bit longer, keep it more steady, but you know what? We're going to call that artistic license. Then we're going to bring up the base so it kind of matches a little bit closer. There we go. That's a table-ish looking object, right? Semi-table. It's table adjacent. Yeah, best 3D table leg all day. Pink, are you coming out with more deep fried videos? We have deep fried videos every last Friday and first Friday of the month. First Friday of the month is Deep Friday. Last Friday of the month is Deep Fried What? Okie dokie. Let's see, where do we want to take this now? I feel like I kind of want to give the table a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of detail, but we'll do that after we, at a later point. Because it looks like there's kind of a bevel underneath, and a flatter edge. Oh, what the hell? Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Hey, come on, grab the whole edge. You got jerks. Oh, you don't want to do it for me? There we go. Come on. There's all kinds of hotkeys for selecting things in different manners. I just want to select this top edge. Apparently you hit left on the arrow keys, and that'll do it for you. You just kind of got to dig around sometimes. And we're going to go ahead and bevel this, because there's like always a slight bevel on wood, you know? It's never that sharp. It's probably going to be... This is way too big, I'm sure, but let's try it out, see what it looks like. Yeah, that's too much. You just back off, change your value. There we go. That's kind of what we wanted. We're going to do the same to the bottom, but we are going to do it a lot larger. Much like in our reference picture. So scale this one down even a little bit more. And that gives us that sort of, you know, it really classes up the detail, I want to say. That's how I want to describe this. Whereas before it was like a really sharp edge, very polygonal. Now that's like giving it that sort of extra detail that your eye is craving. Sean Webb. So this is the Proxi Art Challenge. There's a link in the description so you can see what that's all about. I'll have to open up Photoshop so we can get to our mood board. But basically we're creating 3 distinct scenes in Unity based on memories. And we're just doing this as like a fun little, you know, task to do while we got nothing else to do during the day. It is a table. Oh my god. How did that happen? Hello Photoshop. Welcome to the party. Glad you could show up and get all up in my face. Maybe maybe you could knock next time. Okay. I think that's as much detail as we want. We do want to, you know, soften some of these edges. Can we just grab these? No. They don't want to work, right? Whatever. What up, Josh? How's it going? I'm just slowly going insane over here. It's fine. See if that's a good example of what I want. Yeah. It's good enough. It's good enough. Oops. I did not want to hit that. We'll probably bevel all these too. I mean, of course you would, right? Head mesh. Bevel. Let's go with the small bevel. That one. Ooh, too small. Too small of a bevel. 2? There we go. It's a bit better. It's a bit better. Get that fancy. So we can just always remove these and, you know, redo them. I did like the hard edge on the center line. So we're going to go ahead and re-add that. Because that'll give us good lighting when we're, you know, inside the Unity scene. Let's do the same, do the above. Like you know. Let's get our leg closer to where we want it first before we start duplicating shit. That's probably okay. I'm gonna make this leg's really fat. I mean, that's alright. It's okay to be that, you know. It's okay to be a little thick. 2 C's, but for our purposes, we don't want that. So we're gonna go ahead and scale these like so. Get a little bit of a more reasonable looking leg. And then maybe we do want it we want it a little bit longer too. What do you think? A little bit longer? It's gonna get weird that way? Yeah, it'll get too weird that way. I think we're okay. We can live with this. Now let's duplicate these like crazy people. Going up. Going up. Close enough. Remember, we're not doing the polished version right now. We're just getting the idea of what we're doing. Which looks pretty okay, I guess. And then let's get the cannon back in here so we know what we're looking at. Okay. Now visualize with your mind's eye what we got going on. You got your durian bouncing out of your can. You're going to have a spotlight coming from up above. And we're going to have some sort of skyboxy type object going on in the background. Just kind of probably dark. Probably a nice dark gradient. So why don't we go ahead and set this up as if it were the environment instead of just a table, because we're not going to want the table to actually animate. I can't imagine we want it to animate, so this will be more of our environment scene. So let's just keep working on it as such. Get a nice ground plane, and then we'll want a sphere for our skybox. So a skybox is what's a skybox? A skybox is basically your environment's, you know, sky, background, sort of whatever is in the back that isn't your actual environment and objects. And it's typically, way bigger, way larger than everything you're working on. So that when you parallax, it looks like it's off in the distance. And then we also need the faces to be, directed the right way. So that's something I haven't really explained before. The faces of our 3D object, any one of these things, is made up of first the vertices, then the edges, and then inside those edges are the faces. And the faces have a value of basically a directional value that tells whatever programming you're using to render these faces which way it's facing. Thus face. Face, face, face. The reason for that is because it's much quicker in a gaming engine to process a face by only one direction. So that if a face is not facing the camera, if the face is not facing your face, the camera won't render that face. Is basically what's happening. So Maya by default does not render that way. It shows you both faces. So that's something you gotta turn on. Backface culling. So as you can see, our big sphere here that's gonna end up being our skybox, when you dive into it, it disappears. You can't see it anymore. Much like our ground plane, when you go underneath it, it's disappeared. It's because now it's not rendering that face when it's not facing your face. It's still there. You can still grab it, but it's just, not being rendered at that time. Skyboxes, we do want to see those faces, so you need to reverse them faces so they're facing the other face. There you go. Now when you're on the outside, you can see inside of it, because you're actually seeing the faces on the back end of this sphere instead of the front end of the sphere. And that's like, the initial setup of where our environment's going. I think maybe our ground plane should be a circle too. Should be more of a cap instead of. Is this what I want? Oh yeah, that's what I want. Should be more one of these things, because it feels like with our environment we're going with lots of circles here. We're going with lots of round shapes. This is the round scene, I guess. We've discovered that everything here is round. This is a round world, so we're going with it. One thing we can quickly do is stick this skybox on its own layer. That way, we can lock it when we don't want to grab it, because there's a lot of stuff inside of the skybox we're going to want to keep grabbing. So we just lock it, and now we can't grab it. But we can grab the faces inside. Yeah. Alright, this is kind of the bare bones of what our scene, what we want out of our scene, really, because you're going to be coming into here and pretty much looking at just the can all the things coming out of the can, and it's going to be sort of the focal point through lighting too, is like this can. This memory is based on this can. So we want everything focusing and pointing on this can. The circles are actually going to help that too, because everything, like the center of all these spherical and circular shapes, is all coming to this can. It's like concentric rings, right, that are just directing you right to this can. The can is the important part. Always have a focus in whatever you're making. So let's go ahead and do some very quick and dodgy sort of textures. We just want a gradient on our sphere, so we can do that. I don't care, Photoshop. I don't care if you update it. Just let me start something, alright? Jeez. Fucking Photoshop. So we're probably going to want to play with these colors a whole lot, but to start out with, we know a couple of things, right? We know we want it to be dark and that we want it to be a gradient. So let's work with that and just make a dark gradient like so. Now you could do this, if you're just doing this in Maya, you could easily set up a gradient through a gradient shader. But we're working on this in Unity, so we want to use a texture so that we can, use and modify this texture through Unity. We're going with the TIFF, that layered TIFF. We don't want to work out a cold Moo. Documents. Proxy Art Challenge. That's what we're going with. Come in here, working assets, models, the memory of the can, skybox. Alright, dive into the Mayas. Let's set up our little material here. We're just going with Lambert because we don't need our skybox doing anything fancy. Definitely don't need that. Remember, guys, naming conventions. Let's find a file. Probably the file we just made. Oh, I saved that to working assets, didn't I? That was a bad idea. So why is that a bad idea? Because we're trying to get this into Unity. So Unity needs to be able to find this file, which it does not know the folder working assets. We're supposed to put it in actual assets, which we're doing right now, behind the scenes. I assure you, it's in assets. Skybox it up. Okay, our skybox is locked. We want to unlock it so we can actually attach this texture to it, and aja boom. So you can see, like, it's kind of weird looking. Let's go to no lights, or flat lighting. What Maya does by default is it adds some lights for you. That helps, with looking at your normals and everything. But you don't typically want that if you want to do stuff like this, where we're trying to figure out what our texture actually looks like on here. You can see we got this big old seam going down the side. We definitely don't want that. So we're going to come in here to our UVs, take a look. And why is it doing this? Because we made a spherical gradient, of course. That was stupid. Why would we do that? Cannot open, the file cannot be found because I moved it. Jeez, I'm just a comedy of errors today. Okay, here's a gradient. We don't want a spherical gradient, despite, you know, what you may think initially, because we're coloring a sphere. You definitely want it, you know, a normal gradient. Let's come back to Maya, and then boom. There are little seams gone. And you can see how the gradient looks. Sans lighting. Bottom to top, darker at the bottom, lighter at the top. And it has that classic Cult Moo red going on. And I think that's a good idea. We definitely want our floor to have sort of gradient too. But what sort of gradient do we want? You probably want something similar, maybe. I don't know. Maybe it should be more blue. Well, let's just go with blue for now, because why not? You know, that's how I always work. Why not do a thing? We're gonna call this the floor. Why not? Ground might be a better word, but work with me, people. So what we need with this one is we need to be able to find the direct center of this guy. So grab your rulers. So you can create these little nifty, you know, lines here. How wide is this? 14? It's a weird, like, why isn't there a snap in the center? There should be a snap in the center. Somebody help me. Somebody knows Photoshop. How do I get this to snap? Let's just pretend this is the center. Let's eyeball it. Sure, that'll work. What exactly am I watching? You are watching Herr Pink go mad. Over the course of about a month, maybe. Depends on how things go. Oh no, I want a sphere this time. I actually do want a sphere. There we go. So this will go to dark on the outer edges, and we're also let's see if this works. I have an idea in my brain hole. Thanks, Josh. I knew I could count on you. View, snap. I see rulers, but no snap rulers. I think we're okay, though. I'm sure it's somewhere in there that I'm not seeing. Save as. Oh, I already saved it. Save it again. Come into Maya. Guides. Everything's got to have different wacky names. Oh, yeah, right. I was still doing stuff in here. So, actually, let's look for that. View. Guides. Snap guides. Where's guides? We're going to create a new layer with a gradient of just black and white. And what this is going to become is our alpha gradient. And alpha is what dictates the transparency of your image. Now we got this backwards. That's okay though. We can just invert it. Like so. And the whiter this thing is the more opaque it's going to be. So we just take this and copy it to our channels. You're going to make a new channel. That's alpha 1. Paste it in there. Now you got a nice spherical, alpha. I'm going to hide this one. I'm going to make sure to select your RGB so you know what you're looking at. I've gone ahead and screwed up my selection here. Oh man, is this another weird Photoshop thing? I don't want to visualize my transparency all the time. I only want it sometime. You used to just be able to select shit and that would go away, but I guess it's just going to be there forever and always now because Photoshop knows better than you. But that's just showing you that the red part is going to be the transparent part. And the reason we're doing that is so that when we have our spotlight happening in here, shining on our table and our can, giving you a shadow into here, is so that you focus less on the ground plane as it goes off into the distance, and it just sort of fades out of reality. Like it would in a dream. Or a memory, as it were. Let's create a new material for our ground. So if you're actually making this for a game, you know, you'd be a lot more stingent about how many textures and materials you're creating, but this isn't for a game, so we're not going to worry about that. Because this will be quicker if we do it this way. I noticed my can, my drain, my skybox. I done went and saved my ground to the wrong spot. I done did it. I'm in working assets again. We want assets. Get in there. Get out of here. Nobody likes you. Yep. Hey, look at all these. Look at all these thumbnails for all these bro beers that aren't made yet. Spoilers. Right. Floor. Oh, I named my mat ground mat. That's a bad idea. We want it all to be floor. And there you go. You got sort of that, you know, floor-like object sort of fades into the background. Gives you the sense that there is a ground plane without being, you know, exactly a ground plane. And we'll probably end up, you know, changing the color of it in the future, but for now we just kind of want that quick, easy representation of what's going on. Let's work on some table. Again, we only want Lamberts. And we're gonna go ahead and assign it to all this. We're not going to combine this table together yet because if we want a really good, you know, table texture, we want these elements separated out so it's easier to unwrap them. Which we will do at some point, but probably not today. So let's go to new, again a 1024. Table we probably want to work in higher detail, but for now this will be okay because we're just kind of getting colors in there. Let's look at our reference table again. It's sort of a reddish wood, reddish yellowish wood, so we're gonna amp that up a bit. Remember, we're making this hyper real somewhere in this direction. And we're gonna go to a similar but darker, more blue for the shadow, and we're going to go ahead and give this a round gradient as well. Of course, I need to get to the right gradient, and that would be helpful. And we want to actually reverse this and make this a little bit darker. Blip. Get them rulers out of there. Well, actually, let's see here. Somewhere around here. There we go. And this is okay. Let's get to the right folder for once. Why don't we? Table. And then Unity, we got our table. Or not Unity, but Maya. Let's get our file going on. Table. Table. So now our table's brown. Let's come into our UVs. So we're kind of working with the right spots that we want to work with. You can see how this is like, the unwrap on this is all kinds of weird. Or I guess you can't see because I got it on the wrong monitor. Jeez. Jeez, you guys. And the bottom and the top of our table are going to be they're just going to overlap exactly. We don't need to worry about that kind of deal. That kind of detail. So we want that gradient, you know, kind of coming out of there. In the table surface. And then we also probably want a little bit of a gradient on those legs. So even though this isn't over the image part of this, this will still have the image on it because the texture just sort of wraps forever. And at least if you set it up that way. And this will sort of borrow, you know, just imagine this image back here duplicated over on this square. And it's doing the same thing. Bloop, bloop, bloop. There we go. I mean, obviously not a final texture, but it's what we want. Do the same with these guys. Almost sneezed. Almost sneezed. My face. Look at that. Okay. It's doing things. There are colors and spots where we want colors, kind of. Cool. I think this is something we can work with. Obviously, you know, this is not even first pass yet. This is like, you know, template work. But, you know, it's getting us where we're going. And we did something bad. We haven't saved the scene yet. Never do that. Don't do that, guys. Don't be like me. Don't be like Herr Pink. Be better. Let's call this, we're just going to go ahead and call this memory can, because this is our scene. Let's set up our export. Create sets. Quick select set. Model export. Go to our handy dandy game exporter. Make sure everything we are exporting is frozen in place and it has no history, because Unity will not like it otherwise. Model default, we're going to export our object set that we created. Model export. You can see like the can has its export groups in here. That's so you know you can reference the can into any other scene and export it as well. It's just a useful workflow doing it that way. We do not want to embed media or input connections. We want this on ASCII always. We're going to export it to assets models. And we're going to call it memory can. There we go. Go ahead and export that. See what we're seeing again. Let's take a look in Unity. See just what's going to happen. This is always the fun, fun part of the projects you work on is you come into Unity and see if Unity did anything correctly. Number one, it's not even popping up, so that's a good sign. So we got our scene here. We're just working with willy-nilly. First thing we want to do is we're working with the can just directly in the scene. Typically, you'd probably want to create some sort of prefab out of that. But you know what? We like to live on the edge, so we're not going to do that. What we do want to do, though, is create sort of containers to use as placement for these objects that we have. So we create an empty game object. We'll call this can. I don't like capitals. Can placement. Sure. And then we're going to go ahead and put our colliders inside of here because they're moving with our can. And we're going to put our can in here, or our FX for our can, and the can itself. And that way we can move the whole deal with this one object, which is what we want to do. And you know what? We don't even really need this can collider because all that does is get in the way of the objects we're doing. But we do want, our floor collider. Ooh, actually, our floor collider we don't want on our can placement. That's just going to hang out outside of there. What we do want is a new collider, though, which will be our table collider. This way we can have whatever's coming out of this can bounce off our table as well as our floor. Maybe it won't make it all the way to our floor, but it might. So we're going to add a collider. Let's see if we have a cylinder or something similar to that. It doesn't look like it. They're never nice, Maybe a capsule collider will do what we need. But we'll figure that out once we get our table in here. So let's throw in our scene. Memory can. Whoa, wacky. So you can see Unity's lighting is doing some interesting things to this. But we'll deal with those later. First, we're going to go ahead and get our can into position. So let's just move it up onto the table. It doesn't have to be perfect. There we go. And then we want our table collider to actually be where the tabletop is. Let's give it some radius so it's big. And then let's lower the height, hopefully. Lower height? No, you're not going to do it? Oh, man. Man. Let's get rid of this capsule collider. That's not the business we want. I don't know if a 2D collider will effectively work with the 3D objects we have going on, but let's try it. You don't know unless you try it. And obviously you're going the wrong direction, buddy. You need to flip around. Offset. No, that's not what we want. Why can't I rotate you, my bray? I definitely don't want you facing that direction. It looks like 2D colliders aren't gonna work either. I don't know. Let's see if rotating something else will rotate it. Nope. It's only going to face the one way because 2D collider, of course. Anybody know how to make a circle collider? I could probably make a mesh collider, but oh my god, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea. You got a wheel collider? What the hell? Let's find out what a spatial mapping collider is. That doesn't look like what we want. We're gonna keep it simple. I guess we're just gonna add a bunch of boxes. I mean, this isn't the most effective way. A better effective way I would just use a mesh collider and make a circle and export that and use that. But for quick and dirty purposes, this will be okay. It'll get roughly, you know, what we want. Can I have more than one box collider on the same object? We're gonna find out. Sure can. Alright. I'm okay with this. So there will obviously be little spots where things can clip through and whatnot, but that's okay. We just want a general, you know, general sense of where it's going. Fast and loose, people. We're working fast and loose. We don't got time to think about stuff. We just got time to do stuff. There's an edit collider. I wonder if that will let us make a circle. That'd be funny if it did. Oh no. It just lets you grab shit by hand. That's stupid. That's stupid, Unity. Nobody wants that. Nobody's working that way. Okay, there's a rough circular shape. It might have even been quicker to make a mesh collider, but you know what? That's okay. It is interesting. I can see the blue in here. I don't know what's happening here. I'm just sticking it. Oh my god! That was scary. Scared myself. Okay, so floor collider. That is on our floor. Table collider. It's over our table. We only really need to worry about the surface since everything's bouncing away. It's not going to bounce back in. Got a can. Got our table happening here. Let's go ahead and save our scene real quick and let's just play it, see what happens. Oh, that's right. Our durian moved. Our can moved. What didn't move was our camera. So here's the live preview of our camera. We'll just move this up a bit. I think I wanna move this around a little bit more because we can't see any of our table. There we go. So you can see these guys bounce off of the table and down to the ground, which is fun. And that's kind of, I'm feeling like we're going to work with this camera a whole lot. To get it into a position we kind of like, because we kind of want to see some of that table. But we want it to be centered. And that's probably okay. Now, let's come into the texture of our environment and see if there aren't a few things we can do to improve that overall experience. So, you know how we do this, folks. We extract our materials. And that way we can modify these to our leisure. There's our floor. The floor is definitely, you can see there's like white along the edge of where the transparency is, which is not what we want. Specular highlights, yeah, let's take that out. Reflections, we don't want it to reflect anything. The albedo is where we want it. So we're actually using that color. Do we want it metallic? No, it's not a metallic floor. Let's do the same for the skybox. We don't want speculars. Don't want reflections. Albedo alpha. That's an interesting. Whoa. Not sure what's happening there. Guess that's sort of what we want. I could play with that alpha channel a lot more. Let's see if that'll... So I'm not 100% familiar with this fancy Unity texture stuff. But yeah, this is the memory we want. I think this is what we're going for. What we do want to figure out is how to affect these lights in a meaningful way. So our directional light is what's giving us our shadow direction, obviously. So we can rotate this around, do what we want. So we're gonna have a few lights, in fact. So let's go ahead and treat this light as our spotlight, because we are gonna have a spotlight. And our spotlight's coming from directly above. Directly above our can. Whoop. So we're definitely going to want that harsh light coming up, or coming from the top. It's interesting, our floor Because we do want, you know, that shadow on of the table against our ground. Maybe because our ground is not a different object, is why it's doing that. So let's work under this assumption and actually extract our table from our environment so that perhaps, well, no, see, our skybox has that big circular shadow down there. That's coming from, is that coming from the can? Or is that coming from our table? Yeah, so that shadow's working. So why isn't our shadow on our ground plane working? Is it because of our alpha map? Possibly. Let's go ahead and take that out of there. See if that is the cause of all of our problems. Floor is what we want. Get out of here. Let's take a look in Unity. Oh no, still not doing it right. Alright, floor. What's your deal? What's your deal, floor? I should have named these things, that's for sure. Why you no shadow? Actually, I don't want you to cast shadows, that's for sure. I don't want my sphere to cast shadows either. Off. I definitely want to receive shadows. But I have no shadow. It's the weirdest thing. This is always, you know, this is always a struggle. Figuring out why things aren't working like they're supposed to. Because I should totally be getting a shadow from this table. And yet, it is not. Where your shadow at? This don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. Maybe because it's only a plane. It's confused about it being a plane. I could see that being a thing. So we can go ahead and give us thickness. Maybe that'll do something. We're just grasping at straws at this point. Also, I realized Maya isn't automatically updating my texture, so that's fun. Because that's definitely a setting I made. Export. Well, let's name these things. Actually, that'll that'll be helpful. Also, this is as an offset. I thought I froze all my transformations, but apparently not. And for now, even though we're going to need to separate this out later, and actually give it some detail, we'll just combine this into one object. This will be table. This will be floor. And then our ever-loving skybox. Oh, of course, since we combined our table, it jumped out of our export group. That's easy to fix. We can just throw it back in there. Re-export. Come back into Unity. And there's our table. And yet, we still have our problem with our shadows. Why? Why you do this? Why you do this? What is wrong with you, Floor? Here we go. Rendering mode. Apparently you don't want it on transparent. We all learned a thing today. Okay. This is what we got going on. We got a heavy spotlight. We're going to want a couple of other lights. You know the old setup, the old multi-directional, what have yous. We'll have sort of a weird stage lighting situation. And then on these guys, we probably don't want shadows or very light shadows. Very, very light. So you get that sense of like being inside of a, you know, a theater or something with not very, I don't want these as intense as they are. So let's dial that back too. There we go. Then we can also give these lights a bit of color. You know, we love that red. Them reds and them blues. And if I wanted to be super fancy, I'd come behind here and add a rim light. Which I'm going to try, at least. And this, you definitely don't want shadows. You want it more intense. Yeah, look at that. Boom. And it's kind of funny how it looks like the skybox is creating that shadow. So we don't want the skybox to cast shadows, obviously. We don't want it to even receive shadows. And we also don't want the floor to cast shadows. It's almost as if Unity has sort of a, it's giving you that sense of when you're staring into a light, everything behind it gets a little bit dark. So let's take down the intensity a little bit. There we go. We just kind of want that bright edge coming from the back, like so. Just to give it, you know, a little bit of a cool look. Let's amp up these shadows a little bit, since they're a little bit hidden from our intensity now. We're starting to like set the stage. Yeah, we're probably gonna set up the table as if it has, you know, some leftover shit on there, some napkins and silverware, and maybe I don't know if I'd put something quite as um, large as like a beer bottle, because we want the can to be the focus. Definitely want the can to be the focus. Don't want anything to take away from that. Here's another fun little thing. With Unity's lighting, apparently, it's not seeing the lid here as like a completely solid object, so you get some rings into the shadow. I'm wondering, how can we deal with that? Soft shadows, resolution, high, very high, low, medium, quality, bias. Oh, that's an interesting value. Normal bias. There we go. That's what we want. You don't want to ignore that bias, so you get a solid shape. I don't know what Nearplane does. Nearplane doesn't appear to do anything. Cookies. Who doesn't love cookies? Draw halo? What's that do? Nothing? Cool. Flare? Ooh, camera or light flare. That'd be kind of cool. But we don't want to do that. Or do we? No, we don't. Alright. Let's work with some layers. And what layers allow us to do is set up rules, basically, for how certain objects interact. Like, we can make a layer so that I'll put the skybox on a layer in there, then I can tell certain lights not to actually cast on the skybox. Got a bunch of built-in layers that are doing stuff. Let's go ahead and add skybox. And you're on the skybox. I don't want to change my children, only this object. And then that way, let's say if I came into one of these lights, cooling mask, I can take off skybox. And these lights will no longer affect the skybox. Or I should say, I should do it the opposite direction. Or I should actually make a new layer. All Enviro. Spotlight is nothing. Affects nothing. We want it to affect Enviro. Set our can to Enviro. Can, we want everything in there. Our FX spewer we want on Enviro. And then how do we take some lighting off of this scab box? That's what we want. Want to darken it up. Maybe I'll just do it in the texture. Don't change the children. So, I mean, it's fun. You get the real-time shadows are like just an instant win for Unity. They just kind of work right out of the box. Don't gotta worry about them too much. We definitely want these particles, though, to have some shadow going on, which is going to be interesting figuring that one out. That is not something I have experience doing. Hopefully it's as easy as this. Hey, it is. Alright. And they can even receive shadows? Hell to the yeah. Boom, look at that. Shadows all over the place. We're starting to get there. Starting to get there, I guess. Just staring at this, figuring out like what I want to do. Let's add names first of all. And then something I wanted to get more into was some more particle fun. Because what we're going to do is we're going to take these durian, and remember these are just like the first example of what we're working with. Right? Because we're going to have all kinds of objects hopping out of here, but we want to get it right with this object. What we're going to do is add a trail effect. And to do that, you're actually going to add a new particle spawner, a new shuriken object. So we create an empty child inside of the durian, the thing that actually spits the durian out. And in here, we're going to add a component, our particle system, and for some reason, our scene has decided that particle systems shouldn't start automatically, which is a little bit annoying, but that's alright. And while this is running, we're just going to go ahead and figure out what we're doing with this guy. So we want our particle trail to be sort of, what, ethereal, I guess I want to say? I want it to be like a trail coming out of these durian that sort of like a smoky, smear, I guess. I don't know if Unity has any built-in textures that would work that way, but we can try to find some, I guess. Let's see what materials exist in the scene. Is there a particle? We can push it in that direction. So, first up, let's take all speed off these guys, because we don't actually want these things to move. So, take the speed off. We're going to want these things to have very short lifespans. We want them to scale over time for sure. Size over lifetime. And we want them to scale up and out. So, want them to get big and then shrink. Want them to hop out big. Get all big. Of course, you're just going to hide that handle from me, aren't you? You jerk. There we go. So, you can see them sort of boiling away down here. We want them to be larger. We want color over time because we want them to do we want them to shrink? No, we don't actually. Because we're going to use a fade in this instance. So you can do that in color over lifetime. This little guy. And then our alpha will start. Typically when you work with this kind of stuff, you want your alpha to start at 0 to hit that completely opaque line pretty early, and then to gradually fade off, like so. And then let's go ahead and just move this up so we can see what it's doing. Out of the way of the durian. Okay, I see what's happening here. Let's go ahead and change the color to more of a durian-ish thing here. Now we can also have gradient so that you can have multiple colors. So let's say this color, we want that green that's in that durian. And each particle that spawns is going to be a random between this green and this other color. And this other color is going to be sort of that brownish green that's on the tips of all the cones inside of the durian. We'll get it. We won't be quite that brown, I guess, because we don't want to be too far off. There we go. I think we probably want the lifespan even quicker. And our emission, or not emission, but our shape. We want these all coming from sort of a sphere. But a very small sphere. So we do want a little bit of drift. I like that sort of drifting effect that happens when they're all in different spots. It gets it a little bit more smoky. Okay. And then last thing I think we'll do for right now is we want the simulation space on this particular guy to be world space, and that's going to become important later on, or pretty shortly here, which I'll show you. We're going to name this the trail. So for our durian, spawner, our trail. We're going to go ahead and zero this out again because we don't want it. Oops. We don't want it offset. We come into our durian spawner, and we're going to do a thing called sub-emitters. And what a sub-emitter lets you do is basically emit another particle system out of each particle on a particle system. So it's like a super meta particle system. And we tell it that we want our sub-emitter to be the trail. And we want that to be the birth. And that way, when it's born, this particle's sort of following them, and we want it to inherit probably nothing, I guess. Let's see what happens. There you go. So now you got little little trails happening behind each of these durian. Now, right now, the durian are traveling fast enough that you can see there's a lot of space in between each particle. So what we want to do is come into this trail, and we want to change the emission, which is how fast these particles are being spawned. And then we can jack that up so that now it's more of a dust trail. Ooh, yeah, that's getting somewhere. It's a whole shit ton of particles, but like I said, we're not worrying about that. We are not worried about that. What else can we do? We don't really want that sort of, I don't think we want that additive sort of effect. You see how, like, where the trail really stacks? It sort of glows. It's like, that's okay, but unfortunately that's just part of the default particle effects. So we'll have to deal with it for the time being. Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and make them a little bit more transparent overall. But we're also going to make them a lot larger. Definitely getting a rocket-propelled sort of feel off of this. What we're going to go ahead and do is we're just going to create a material for us. And say we'll probably want multiple trails for each object. So we definitely want to name them in a meaningful way. Because we can use the default particle texture and then apply that to a material that is not additive. Now we definitely need to mess with this material a little bit more. In fact, we probably don't want to use a standard shader. Let's see what we could find inside of here. FX? Flare. Ooh, that's neat, but we don't want that. Mobile. Multiply. We don't want multiply. Particles. Alpha blended. Alpha blended is what we want. We will end up making our own texture for these two. So we're okay with how it kind of fades to this black color for now. And that gives you a bit more of the smoky effect I'm looking for. Let's see, size over time. Let's change the starting point because we don't want these guys to start out completely, you know, not there. And then again, the lifetime is too long. There, yeah. We want it to look ethereal. We don't want it to look like... Oh, jeez. We don't want it to look, you know, rocket-propelled necessarily. We want it to look sort of ghost-like. Sort of like, what am I thinking of? When something goes slow-mo and you kind of leaves a trail in like a movie or something. Sort of a render artifact. Now they almost glow. I don't want them, I don't quite want them to glow. There we go. Maybe a little bit longer lifetime. And then color over lifetime. I want them to fade quicker. There we go. And let's go ahead and take a look at that while it's running. Yeah, it's sort of a motion blur idea, but without using actual motion blur. Because we're going to put a little bit of texture on these to look more foggy. Because right now it's just sort of a solid color that fades out to the edges. And what we actually want is something that has sort of cloudiness to it, fogginess to it. It just gives it that sense that this isn't, you know, the real world that we're looking at. Obviously, it's not the real world because we got a dancing can and, you know, millions of durian jumping out of here. But we want to further sell that idea by giving each of the objects that are hopping out of here sort of that, you know, ethereal feel. And then we can even play with these more. Let's mess with our material a little bit. Alpha blended. There is just an art or particles set up, so alpha blended pre-multiply. What does that look like? That's kind of interesting. Like the glowy is kind of cool, but you need the durian to glow with it, which I don't think I want that going on. Multiply double? That's kind of giving it a neat look because it actually has that sort of render layer effect, like a Photoshop file of a multiply, which affects different colors differently. It looks almost more ghosty, but not quite where I want to go. What else we got? Standard surface? Oh, ho, ho, ho. That is not what we want. Soft additive? That's an interesting... Ooh, I think that's more of what I want. It's like they're jumping out of durian dust and leaving little trails behind. Something else I could do that I don't think I want to... I don't think I actually want it to... It would be more distracting. Would be like add, you know, a big puff of the stuff when they fade out. Or an alternate puff when they kind of like show up. But, yeah, I don't think I want to do that. Bigger can. I think our can's fine. Yeah, I think I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that pretty good. So let's go ahead and let's try to doctor up a texture a bit. Let's see if we can actually find this, if this exists somewhere. Is this actual texture? Which it doesn't, but that's okay. It's just a white sphere, as you can see, and all we really want to do is sort of do a play on that. Let's make this a lot smaller than typical. And get a gradient, black and white, circular. I never did find. Oops. Let's reverse this. What are we looking for? What are we looking for here? Maybe if I use an actual sphere, this will be a little bit better. Fill. Black. Okay. And what we're going to do with this, so we're going to take out its actual fill, and we're going to work with just effects. So let's say an inner glow, and we're going to put this in the center. Size, something like this. We're going to make this pure white. Opacity all the way up. So you see this is sort of duplicating the effect of what we're looking at in Zamaya's. Kind of want, what, like one of these? Yeah, I want like the inverse, basically, of what this is doing. I do I customize this? A new contour. They don't even let you. I'm sure there's a way, but whatever. We'll work with this for now. This will be fine. This is fine. This is totes fine. Okay, so what we're doing is giving this some sort of brush detail. And we can just find a... Is there a built-in brush we can use? Has a little bit of dusty dust to it? Yeah. 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 And this is just build us some, like, fake details. You know what I mean? Give it something a little smoky. Build this up a little bit more. Can I come around these edges a little bit? This just gives our, you know, gives it a little bit of texture. So that we don't just have like a solid glow out of our little gradient thing that's happening. Let's see what this looks like. What I don't believe we want layers on this sort of effect, but let's try it, see what it looks like, see if it gets confused. Trail. Smoke. Then I can just come into my trail mat and drag and drop my effect. Yeah. 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 So you see how it looks more gritty now? That's really all I'm trying to get out of this. Is that the sort of effect that's following it, like I kind of want it smoky or dusty, is sort of the sense I want coming out of it. So we can push that even further with this guy. If I amp this up, or if I just do one of these, actually. Come back in here, and then, yeah, even more. That looks better. So it gives it that, I don't know, it just gives it texture detail that really helps sell that sort of idea I'm going for. And then if we adjust color over time so that this transparency is down a little bit. Kind of, yeah. Yeah. So it just gives you, we're always looking for, you know, a feeling of a thing and not really what a thing might be. Because remember, this is we're looking at memories here. So we want things, you want to evoke feeling more than you want to evoke any sort of photorealism or anything like that. Even though we're trying, like we're adding that with the shadows and stuff, there's always something a little bit, you know, a little bit off. And then each one of our particles, you know, that this spits out, or whether it's a fish or a kidney or whatever else is coming out of this can, it's going to have its own little trail coming out of it that, you know, the color is affected by that main object. That feels... I think I can honestly shrink these up a bit. I can subtlify them a bit. Yeah, yeah. There we go. It's just a touch, you know? Just a light touch of that thing that's happening. It's not the point of this. It's just the extra polish point. Adds a little bit of detail. Which is really all we're doing with that. Sweet. Another thing we can work on is our actual spotlight. So to create this spotlight, what we're going to use is probably more effects. We want like sort of the God Ray effect coming from up above. In order to do that, we will use more particles. So let's try it out. Let's just start from scratch, see what we can do. These are going to come up from over here. Again, we're using a particle system. We're not going to use speed. We're actually going to have a very slow emission time. We want them to overlap though. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to create multiple planes on top of each other that have that additive lighting effect on these particles, and they're going to be streaks facing downward and coned out a little bit that scale up slightly over their lifetime and also fade out. So to get that effect to really look like sort of a spotlight glow, you need to have more than one of those planes at a time. But you want one to like sort of die off while another one sort of fades in, right? And that needs to be on sort of a looping cycle, so you get like sort of a strobing effect of the light. And this is like the start of it right here. So it actually looks like there's a trails thing in here now. I'm gonna have to look at that later on to see if maybe we can even have more fun with the particles we're spitting out of the durian. But anyways, here we go. Here we go. We need our renderer, so we're looking at, you know, an actual particle for the point for the time being. Let's just not even mess around and make our own material. We're going to call this God Rays. Particles. We're going with additive. And let's go ahead and use our texture that we made, our trail smoke, for our texture for now. Because, I don't know, just for funsies. Just for funsies. Get our God Rays, our renderer. We're going to use our God Rays material. Yeah, and these are still drifting around, which is not exactly what we want, but we will control that through shape. We have a cone, The radius we want to be small, I believe, right? Is that right? I believe that's right. We want the direction to be down. Again, our speed is like, you probably don't want any sort of speed, or just like a very light speed. We want these sorts of these particles are going to be different. So before we were using billboard particles, which basically face the camera no matter which angle you look at them, which is how you get sort of a volumetric feel when you have a bunch of those particles, which is what we're doing with the Durian trails. But this guy, we want to use a stretched billboard, which will make sense pretty soon here. So we're stretching these out, right? And they're actually stretching the wrong direction. We want their size to be bigger. Let's take that stretch down. Our color over lifetime is something we definitely want, so that these fade in and out. I got them going the wrong direction, of course. Out, out. Alright, we want size over lifetime. And we don't want them to be, like, tiny at first. We just kind of want them to... We want them to strobe, for lack of a better term, I guess. We don't really want any external forces. And these are probably, you know, probably moving a little bit too much. But that's okay. And it looks like we're going to need more. We want more. But also we want them to be more transparent. So they sort of fill the space we're throwing them into, right? Move that up. It's like a shape. Our shape is a little bit off. Our angle, that's what we want to affect. We want a tighter angle, like so. And obviously we want a different texture here. But you can sort of see where I'm starting to go with this. Or at least I hope you can. I don't know if I want a volume. I think I do want a base. Spread? No spread. You want the whole arc there. Okay. That's close-ish to what we want. Ish. See what, if we can, like... There we go, get more of a range. And what we want to do from here is we want to actually give it the right texture. So I'm going to come in here, and we can start with this guy, because we do want a little bit of that, you know, detail in the texture, that sort of mottled detail. But we don't want a sphere with this one. We don't want, like, this guy. What we want is a cone, an actual cone. We'll do that with polygon tool. Yeah, we can make this work. Do 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 do. See where I'm going with this? Hello, Loafy. What's going on? We're just we're continuing work on our scene here, and we're making some effects and whatnot. So this we want to push a little bit better along the edges. We still want it to kind of, you know, have that fade. We want it less opaque. And then we also want sort of a gradient from the top down. Let's work in opposites. There we go. There we go. Get this guy, introduce this thing back into this business. Let's affect the layer style so it only affects our spotlight. There we go. Oh, we are eventually going to add stuff to the table, but currently we're working on a spotlight. Just adding some streaks into here is what I'm trying to do. Okay. Just so we get sort of different levels of, you know, what's happening here. each one of these little guys is going to be its own sort of deal. And now if I was like a super good painter type, I mean, you could just paint your own, you know, thing that's happening here. But I'm not, so I'm just kind of cheating it with lots of little shapes and layer effects and whatnot, which I readily admit is not the best way to do this. Probably not even the easiest way to do this. It's just the way I know how I can sort of make the effect that I'm going for. Now let's jump back into Unity, and then we're using our God Rays texture on our material. And then obviously, first thing to note is our texture's facing the wrong direction. That's how you do. You know, that's just something you deal with. So you come into Photoshop, then you rotate your image. Let's see if that's the right direction. I mean, you can do this in Unity too. I can't really tell. I think that's actually upside down. Is that upside down? I think that might be upside down. Let's try to rotate it one more time. Hopefully. There we go. There's the spotlight. Finally. So you get those nice streaks going on. You get a little bit of texture detail in that spotlight, almost as if like there's dust in the air. And then since it follows along with where our light source is coming from, it, you know, it actually looks like a fucking light. Later, Loafy. Least likely to blow chunks. That's true. I don't know. I don't have any secrets. It's just how I am. We can edit the shape so our radius is a little bit bigger too, so that it doesn't look like the light is coming from, you know, a super distinct source. It's better to have not quite as much stretch and then just be bigger, so that, you know, it looks cooler. Then our radius can actually go down a little bit. And our angle can come down slightly because, you know, the texture's doing the angle itself. And let's go ahead and play this again. Oh, I don't know if you noticed, but the light didn't start right away. So no light to begin with, and then it eventually comes shining down. This is because our effect does not have pre-warm turned on. You turn on pre-warm, and that thing's going to be there right from the get-go. Pre-warm just pre-calculates basically what the, you know, what the effect is doing. So there we go. That's doing a thing. Let's play around a little bit more with the material of this, because it's kind of doing what we want, but maybe we can push it even a little bit more. So let's find our God rays. We're on an additive particle, additive soft. We don't want additive soft. Pre-multiply? Ooh, we definitely don't want that. So this is a lot of the fun of, you know, making this kind of stuff is just digging around and stuff and being like, hey, what does that look like? Particles, additive multiply? Whoa, that kind of gives it a weird jitter, doesn't it? Let's go back to just additive, because that's kind of a weird effect. We can bump this up, bump up some alpha, or tint color. Ooh, that can be fun. Can affect the color of our light, which we probably don't want to do since we're actually just using white. Generally, you want to add a little bit of color to a light, depending on what the light source is, you know. A sun will be more of a yellow, gold, or something, reddish, whereas like a fluorescent light will be more blue-hued. So it looks like maybe our floor is sort of cutting out a bit of the effect of this, and that just might be how they're adding together. But I would prefer it look a little bit more solid. Maybe I can do something with my texture, my floor texture. Or maybe not, you never know. Sort mode, sorting fudge. There's definitely a lot of sorting issues you got to deal with when working in game engines. Trying to figure out what I actually want to do with this table. Or not table, but the floor. Oh, look at that. I named it Kai Box Mesh. That's good. Anyways, like the floor I want it to fade out as it gets to the edges, but apparently we can't cast shadows on that kind of an object. Perhaps we could make a multi-material object so that only the edges have that transparency going on. We could do something like that. Do I even want the floor? Maybe this is just happening in a void. Maybe that's what's happening. I don't know, I kind of like the void idea. It makes it feel less, you know, grounded, more of what I'm going for, and more of that ethereal effect. So I do believe we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that floor, because it's not getting us any sort of benefit. Rather than just straight up delete this, I'm just going to remove it from my export group. That way I can always come back to a floor if I decide maybe I want a floor. You know? Gotta find the right editor. What is it? Relationship editor? Where's my hypergraph? General editor? Here we go. Jesus. This just lets us modify how things are connected to each other. So you see it's connected to the export group, and I can just say, hey, I don't want you to do that. Delete. Come to our game exporter if it decides to open at some point. Perhaps I just hit it somewhere. There we go. Export. Come back in here. Get it out of there. Yeah, we're only working with what we want to. There we go. Sort of just a table in a void with some durian popping out of a dancing can. I mean, this is pretty straightforward stuff, folks. So from here, what I would probably do is I would work on that table texture. Definitely. I would start making the other objects that are coming out of this can. I would start dressing up the table so you have sort of, you know, just debris laid out on the table that's sort of representative of the memory we're working with. Yeah. That feels like we've gotten to a pretty good a pretty good spot overall with this memory, I think. Yeah. Yeah. I think I can roll with this. I can roll with this. And for me, I think I'm good with working on the proxy art for right at this moment. But I don't want to quite leave streaming with you guys yet. What do you think about editing another video together? Let me know in the comments. I will take the first comment that shows up, and if they say yes, then we'll keep going. If they say no, then the stream is over. So get in that comment. Get in that comment, folks. Let me know what's up. What's up? Okay, Guru, you win. We'll stream some video editing. I'm just getting a little bit, you know, I'm getting a little overwhelmed with all the stuff going on in this scene. It takes a lot of thought to work with all the different pieces as such. What we're gonna do actually first is we're gonna go ahead and take a mini break, because I need to eat something for lunch, and then we'll be right back with some video editing fun. Let me see what we have on the docket, what we got coming up on our schedule. I'll find a good video to edit first so you guys can know. Let's see. Ooh, I don't know. That one could be pretty good. It's not gonna be out for a long time. Ooh, how about you guys are gonna get spoilers, but I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna edit a Drink of Destiny when we come back. All right, you guys up for that? I'm gonna pretend you all said yes. In the meantime, let's go ahead and switch over to our burb background. Blip. We are gonna be right back, lol. See you guys in just a wee bit. I'm gonna go ahead and put on some royalty-free music, so you aren't just listening to silence. We'll just go ahead and play what we left off. Some Mozart. There we go. All right, we'll be right back, guys. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. We're almost back. Today for lunch we are having a bowl of bird's eye microwavable vegetable pasta. I don't know if you've had those bird's eye things before, but I think they're okay. For veggie pasta that you cook in the microwave out of a frozen product, halfway decent. Oh, thank you, Guru account. You're gonna have to talk to Warpig about more Warpig, though. Okay, let me just close up all the stuff we don't need. Maya. We don't need Photoshop. What we do need is Adobe Premiere. Alright guys, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to separate out these two videos so that one stream is the Proxy Art Challenge and then the following stream will be me editing. So I'm going to stop this stream just so it's a contained video, and then I'm going to start the stream immediately after. So just giving you a heads up, we'll be right back on a new stream.